everybody, this is Denise at Foursquare Micro Farm. I posted a picture yesterday about my two at a time mittens, and someone asked a question about how do I cast on for that, and I got so excited that I went ahead and first thing in the morning, like 8 o'clock, decided I'd go ahead and put a little mini video together before I had forgotten and got busy with the day. Well, in the meantime, I had all this junk in the background from paper crafting, and I thought I got most of it up until after I watched the video to put together and saw all that junk. So, because I already cast on and I can't like undo the cast on to film it again, I'm just gonna post a video. So try not to think too badly of me of all that junk in the background. And I also cut out some fabric for historical pockets, and so there's like little bits of fabric on the side and little bits of crafting from the Christmas craft. So just try to ignore that. And thanks as always for watching. And if you have any questions, you can put those in the comments. And please subscribe and tell your friends. And of course, if you have any suggestions for videos, I'd be more than happy to make a few for you. Thanks a lot. Happy viewing. Hi, this is Denise from Foursquare Micro Farm. And I was just about to cast on from some mittens. Excuse me. When I do mittens, socks, or pretty much anything like that, I like to do everything two at a time. Sometimes I do it four at a time because it's easier for me to do them both so you don't have that second sock or second mitten syndrome. And also, mostly because if I'm doing some type of pattern, inevitably I'm going to make some kind of changes, especially with socks and mittens because you're making them personalized for yourself. So you might want something a little tighter or looser or what have you. So I can make adjustments as I go along, and I want to make sure I make the same adjustments to both sides. Of course, even though we all know your hands are not perfectly symmetrical, but still, if I make any kind of adjustments, I want to make sure I do it to both. So I do them both at the same time. Okay, this is kind of like the weirdest way to do it. Or maybe not the weirdest way. Two at a time socks are different than two at a time mittens. Just want to say that. The method of cast on is different. Okay, I'm just doing the socks here. And I'm almost certain there's a name for this, but I have no idea what it is. I am using a ball of yarn, and I'm going to knit from both ends. And you know what, some people like to do two balls of yarn. I like to do one, and I knit from both ends, and I do it all the time. So that's just kind of the way I like to do it. Okay, so gonna make sure our ends are separate. We don't want too much mess. Now, I'm using a thumb cast on because it's fast. The thing about the thumb cast on is it doesn't leave a neat row of ridges along the bottom. So when you start your initial knit, you have to be really careful that they don't pop off and twist out, and then you have to kind of figure it out. But once you know how to do the thumb cast on, if it pops off, you just twist it and put it back on. But you can do the long tail cast on. And I'm not real good about estimating my long tails. Even with the little trick they teach you about how to get accurate long tails, I still don't. And since this is hand spun, I really don't want to waste the tail. You know, I just don't. I don't a lot of times have anything to do with those little scraps left over. So I just don't want to waste it. It's precious. It's my precious. Okay, so anyway, what's important is not actually the cast on, but how you cast on. So I'm going to cast on 26. And like I said, I'm just doing the thumb cast on, and I'm counting the first initial loop here as a stitch. So I'm just twisting. The thumb cast on is you just twist with your thumb and slide on. And since I'm casting on 26, I want 13 on each side. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm just twisting. Okay, now I'm holding the needle this way. You have to make sure you know it's needles. I'm using a circular needle. If you're using double pointed needles, this is a whole different ball game. Can't help you with that. But I assume it worked almost the same way. you're going to put the stitches on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this right here so that it might make more sense. If I move it now, it might not make so much sense. Okay, so we've got this on here. Then I take the other side, the other end, and this is the second mitten. I'm going to put it on, and then I'm going to go ahead and cast on 13. Got to keep that tail out the way, because I could put a marker there, but most of the time I know where my beginning of the round is because my tail is on that side. Of course, I lost count. Okay, so now I have 13. Okay. Now what happens is both of these are going to go all the way around the cord to the other side of the needle. Okay. So both those 13s are going to the other side of the needle. Now I'm going to go ahead and cast on another 13 for this mitt. Hopefully this will make sense to you and I can stay out of your light. Okay, so let me make sure I clarify this. This is the first mitten. Okay. I'm going to slide this one to the other needle. Okay. Okay, so imagine you're looking at from this side. This would be my beginning. Okay. Here's my tail. This will be the first stitch. Now, this one right here. As you know, when you make mittens, you have half on one side, half on the other. So I'm going to divide this up and put 13 on one side, 13 on the other. So let me count up my 13. Hang on, it's easier if I do it this way. Ooh, I got an extra twisty, I think, here. So I have to see about that. And you know what would help if I didn't make everything so tight, but that's just the way I am. Like, all my knitting is so tight. So I'm like fussing around with this, but you probably won't fuss around with it because your knitting's probably not as tight as mine. Okay, so I've split right into 13. And what I'm going to do is pull this to the cord. And then I'm going to pull the cord through. Okay. And so now what I have is the stitches on both sides. And once again, like I tell you, this is all about like the circular needles and like the magic loop and stuff like that. If you're not a magic looper, then this probably is more complicated for you. Okay, so now here we go. I have stitches for mitten number 2 on one side and stitches for mitten number 2 on the other, because I just split them and pulled the cord through, and you can see they're joined here. Now I need to go back to this other needle and make the stitches for mitten number 1. So I turn it back over here, and here's the working end for mittens number 1. And this is another reason why I use the thumb, because it's so much easier to slide on extra. When you do the other casting on, you're trying to get that extra in here, and sometimes you've got like a big leftover gap and all that kind of stuff you got to tighten up. But with the thumb, I'm just going to cinch these babies right onto, they go all the way down to where they need to be, and I just cinch it tight, and I'm good to go. I don't have any loose. So that's Okay, so now I officially have both mittens on my needles. Make sure the yarn is right in the right spot. Make sure that when I go to knit this one, I pull that working yarn where it needs to be. I could put markers, but this tail is telling me that I'm in the front. So I have the tails on both and right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and knit. Now what I'm going to do is after I've knit the 4 rows, I am going to go ahead and put the other mittens back on these needles. Because I was supposed to do 4 at a time from the beginning, but I totally forgot. That's why there's 2 balls here. So I'm going to put them back on, and I'll show you when I have 4 of them on. So here I am with like bits of Christmas crafts like still all over the place. Okay, so here we are. And now I've officially got 4 all together on there. So now I'm rolling with the 2 different balls. Now, one of the complaints I hear people say is, first of all, that circs are kind of fiddly. And you know what? Yes, they are. But for me, double pointed needles are a pain because, first of all, I've got to keep track of 4 needles. And I mean, I'm just going to drop a needle. I'm going to lose a needle. It's just going to get bad. So with the circular needles, I don't have to worry about that. The big key about circular needles is getting a brand where the cord is flexible and you won't have all that tangly cord. Like these wooden ones, they're like terrible, but it is what it is. The ones I use for my socks are the, what is it, Chicago, and I have a pair of those, or there's the Higher. Anyway, I've got a pair of the red lace ones, which are, yeah, I've got a pair of Higher, and I've got a pair of the Addy sock rockets for my socks. So those, the red cord and the, oh, is it a white cord? At any rate, those are just wonderful. And I haven't found a difference between the 2 cords yet. Maybe I need to use them longer. But they're better than any of the other brands I've had. So that's much better. I got these cheap ones, like off eBay. And the cord is great. But of course, the point is not all that great when you get to the bigger needles. So that's one of the reasons why I do use the bamboo ones, because their points are better, or they're better than these metal ones right here. And so I'll just use them till the dogs eat them. Then I'll invest in sock rockets for my other projects. But I just use those high-end ones for the socks. Okay, so anyway, the second thing about them is people, sometimes they get tangled up in the strings. And the big thing about this, when you're knitting anywhere where it's a center pull ball, you just have to make sure to turn the strings to untangle them. So what I do is I just turn the ball. After I knit across, when I do the other side, when I go to flip my needles, like that, I turn the ball. Or I bring the needle under the yarn. That way I'm not making the tangles. Or if I am flipping like this, when it comes back to do the other side, I don't turn, I flip back. So it's always a flip back and forth, so I'm not getting a lot of tangles. And I make sure these 2 balls right here are some distance from each other. And if I'm carrying them, then I put them in 2 separate baskets. So then we don't have this problem. And sometimes I'll even put the ball separately. So there's something spacing these 4 yarns apart from each other. I have one of those art bins. And I mean, you could do it with a piece of cardboard or anything like that. But see how this is tangly? I just spin that ball until it's untangled. And this ball is obviously not entangled. So, it's just a little something with everything. Nothing's going to get you like super perfect. But at least with this, I think they say it's like you finish both of them like 25% faster than you would if you did them both separately. Something like that. So the time it takes me to spin a ball, to straighten it up, to fiddle around with the cord is the same time it would if I did them separately. And I can move pretty fast like this. So basically that's how this is going to go. Now I have 4 at a time on here, and I'll be able to finish off 4 with 25% less time than it would have taken me to cast on each of them separately or a pair of them separately. Okay, I hope that video made some kind of sense. I'll probably be back when I make it Monday, and with at least a halfway, if not completely finished, set of mittens. We'll see how it goes. All right, thanks a lot. Have a great day.